Yes, I plan to vote, and because it's my civic duty and people fought for my right to do it, and millions and billions of people wish they had that right.
Yes, I do plan to vote just because it's my first opportunity to vote. I think even if it makes a small difference in the country, I might as well go to the polls.
I am not planning on voting just because I don't feel like there's anyone that I'd really vote for right now.
I think it's really important for people to vote. I can't really complain about how the country goes if I don't even try to contribute in some way.
Today on The Current, we're looking at the who, why, and how of the election process. Welcome, I'm Aaron Hendel.
And I'm Cindy Robinson. The election season is heating up as each party gets closer to choosing its presidential nominee.
First, we want to take a look at millennial voters and the impact that they might have on the election. Joining us now are Annenberg Media political reporters Max Schwartz and Allie Main. So Max and Allie, the millennial vote was very instrumental in the last two elections for Barack Obama. How do you think it will play out in this election?
Yes, I think obviously we're seeing the millennials go to Bernie Sanders, and that's made up a bulk of his supporters and a good reason why he was able to win the states that he's been able to win. He's been able to invigorate that youth vote, and he's winning the youth vote across all demographics. It's going to affect Hillary because if she ends up becoming the nominee, then she's going to need his youth vote in order to beat the Republican nominee.
Right, and like I talked about last week with you, Aaron, that like Max said, Bernie's getting this millennial vote across all demographics. So even within certain groups that Hillary is getting, like the female vote, Bernie is still getting the young female voters because, he's appealing to these young people with his policies.
Speaking of young people, what issues are most important to the millennials right now?
I think one we've talked a lot about is college affordability. As well as I think just Bernie's general anti-establishment positions. Young people are kind of growing up in a time where there's been a lot of controversial issues going on in government. So just kind of this going against the tradition is something I think that appeals to a lot of young people.
And also, jobs is a big problem, and Hillary Clinton, when she was in Michigan, basically gave the Republicans a talking point by saying that there are no jobs for young people right out of college. I think healthcare also, wouldn't you say?
Yeah.
Because once you reach 26, you're no longer on your parents' healthcare. And I think one thing that we've noticed in our travels and in our coverage is that the candidates who are able to talk to one another, talk to the youth vote and invigorate them, those are the ones who are the enthusiastic ones at all the events and the rallies.
Yeah, and what we saw from when we were in Vegas, the Bernie rally, they were certainly enthusiastic there. So.
Yeah, I think Bernie was a unique case though because of him, but especially.
Yeah, and Bernie didn't win Nevada. That wasn't enough for him to win Nevada, but.
Yeah, and that was in large part due to the African American vote.
Right.
But
yeah.
Again, it goes back to the fundamental differences in their plans. Bernie is for free public college and universities, whereas Hillary Clinton's for debt-free college and public college and universities. Mm-hmm. So it all goes back to specifics, and obviously the youth vote across all demographics is appealing to the outsider, and two, the more liberal. Wouldn't you agree?
Yes, I do agree.
Thanks for your input, guys, and we'll check back in with both of you a bit later. Voters choose candidates based on major issues, but other factors may be just as influential. Helen Floersh will tell us more about the less obvious qualities that can make or break a presidential hopeful.
That's right, Aaron. Candidates may think they have until November to appeal to voters, but psychology suggests it might already be too late. In fact, plenty of people may have made up their minds on first glance. People often associate the way a person looks with their intellectual abilities. So, which of these seems most competent to you? The face on the right, the face in the middle, or the face on the left? Well, according to a team of Ivy League psychologists, you're more likely to associate the left face with trustworthiness, the center face with dominance, and the right face with competence. And since voters consistently say competence is the most important quality in a president, you'd probably expect that candidates who exhibit this trait are most likely to be presidential nominees. But it's not quite that simple. Your choice depends a lot on the party you associate with. A study from the American Marketing Association found that the Republican Party is more frequently associated with competence, while the Democratic Party is more frequently associated with intelligence. And for candidates who hope to be nominated by their respective parties, looking the part is essential. Appearing competent is more beneficial to Republican candidates than Democratic ones, while Democratic candidates are more likely to win over their party when they appear intelligent. Whether these judgments turn out to be accurate when candidates become presidents is still up for debate, so be sure to do your research before you head to the ballot box. After all, looks can be deceiving.
The primary elections are in full swing and the field is narrowing. Disappointing results have forced several candidates out of the race, leaving 4 Republican and 2 Democratic hopefuls still in the race. With the numbers we're seeing in the primaries, who do you think we can expect to see drop out in the next few weeks or so going forward?
Well, if Rubio or Kasich don't win either of their home states respectively, or if they don't win, then they will drop out. However, I think they will continue forward if they don't. I think that's about it.
Yeah, I agree. I think that this upcoming Tuesday is going to be almost like more influential. Like Super Tuesday, there were so many states, there were so many delegates kind of given out among the candidates based on the voting, but I think this Tuesday is almost a little more decisive.
Oh yeah, it's definitely the most consequential day in the race so far, and it certainly has the greatest effect because it either, I mean, you can correct me if you think I'm incorrect, but I think that definitely you're going to see either Trump get a huge boost out of this or he gets a few roadblocks, which means that Kasich and Rubio stay in.
Yeah, no, I agree.
So either from this coming Tuesday or maybe even more in the future, which specific primaries do you think could have a real influence on the nominees?
Florida, for sure.
Yes. Ohio, because Kasich, and then obviously California, because there's a huge haul of delegates there.
Yeah, because I mean, at this point, it's likely that, you know, by the time we get to California, it might still matter. Sometimes it doesn't, but in this race,
anything can happen.
It probably will.
And it will likely, if it comes down to California, likely be Trump or Cruz. And as the big point here is on Tuesday, based on Republican rules, states can be winner take all in the Republican contest, which means if you win by 1 vote, you get all the delegates for that state, which is extremely important when it comes to Florida, which has 99 delegates up for grabs.
Mm-hmm.
There are more than 35 elections left in primary season. There are 6 primaries scheduled for Tuesday, March 12th. Voters in Florida, Illinois, Missouri, North Carolina, and Ohio head to the polls along with the Republicans in the Northern Mariana Islands. The latest polls for the presidential nomination show Donald Trump as the frontrunner for the Republican Party and Hillary Clinton as the frontrunner for the Democratic Party, but the other candidates aren't giving up just yet.
With Donald Trump leading the primary polls for the GOP, we asked some members of the USC community what a Trump presidency would mean to them. Let's take a look at what they said.
The rest of the world would probably view us a little bit more irrationally and a little bit more backwards of a nation.
The difference is that Donald Trump is coming in as a political outsider, and he's able to bring together liberal policies under the conservative half of the American population. And that's why I think under his presidency, we'll actually see more change than we could have ever imagined.
I think a lot of the things Obama did would be turned upside down.
He shows no sympathy towards African Americans and other minorities. He's openly hostile to people from the Middle East. So it would be a very contentious, very combative kind of presidency.
I would move to Canada. I'm not joking.
Trump's candidacy has generated a lot of strong feelings and even stronger words. But the Democrats have seen their fair share of controversy as well.
The delegate count is the best way to keep score of who is ahead in the race for a presidential bid, but Democrats also have to factor in superdelegates. So Allie and Max, can you tell us what exactly a superdelegate is and how it differs from a regular one?
We can do that for you. It's not an easy task, but I'll let Max start this explanation.
So Democrats have, as you've mentioned, are the only party with superdelegates. So in the democratic process, you have pledged delegates and unpledged delegates, and they're both won proportionally in each state if the candidate exceeds a 15% threshold. So pledged delegates are pledged to that specific candidate. Superdelegates or unpledged delegates can change their minds at any time, and part of their purpose is to make sure that there is the affirmative action more or less within the democratic process, because they do mandate that there is a minority quota for delegates per state.
Mm-hmm. Okay, so why is it that the Democrats are the only ones that have superdelegates?
Because that's how the Democratic Party rules are versus the Republican ones, and there's a very good chance that Bernie may ask the superdelegates to be removed. And if he keeps up his momentum and goes in with a large amount of delegates, he could certainly get the party to amend the rules.
Yeah, and superdelegates are the reason why, if you look at the delegate count for Bernie and Hillary, it looks like Hillary has like so many more. Some of those are superdelegates who aren't officially hers.
Because Bernie right now is only behind in pledged delegates by about 200. It's the superdelegates. And part of his plan, according to Bob Shrum, the Democratic strategist and USC professor, is if he can win just one more of the pledged delegates than Hillary Clinton, then he's going to try to convince the superdelegates that they have to come to him.
Thanks again for clarifying, guys. This year's Democratic National Convention will kick off July 25th in Philadelphia.
Superdelegates aren't the only confusing part of the election process. The Electoral College can also be a topic that is a little hard to understand. Annenberg media reporter Eli Goodstein breaks it down for us.
Every election year, the term Electoral College pops up in the media. But what exactly is the Electoral College? And what role does it play in the election process?
The Electoral College is not a place. It's a process, originally created by our founding fathers. You see, every 4 years, the American people go vote for the next president and vice president. Or at least that's what they think. Really, voters are picking people called electors. Electors are individuals nominated by political parties to vote for the president and vice president. So let's break this down. There are 538 members of the Electoral College. Each state gets a set number of electoral votes. How do they determine this? Just add the number of U.S. senators and representatives together. That's 100 plus 435. But wait, that's 535. What's the exception? The heart of it all, Washington, D.C., which gets 3 electoral votes even though it's not a state. When you head to the polls this November, you will probably only see the names of the candidates on the ballot. 48 states follow the winner-take-all system, where the candidate with the most popular votes wins all of that state's electors. Only Maine and Nebraska put the names of the candidates and the electors on the ballot.
All right, let's wrap this up. How does the Electoral College affect the general election?
Basically, location is everything. Smaller states can have as much as or even more power than bigger states, and candidates focus most of their attention on swing states, like Ohio or Florida, to get the 270 votes needed to win. Worst of all, electors sometimes don't even vote for the candidate they were nominated to vote for in the first place.
So yeah, the Electoral College is a tradition in our political system, but that doesn't mean that it's perfect.
California has the most electoral votes of any state, with a total of 55. Those votes have gone to the Democratic nominee every presidential election since 1988.
The California primary election will happen on June 7th. Although the focus has been on presidential nominees, California voters will have other choices to make. On the California primary ballot, voters can expect to see 3 items. First, a presidential nominee. There will also be at least 1 proposition on the ballot, and they will need to make a choice for a Senate candidate. Can you explain how a voter's party affiliation affects the voting in the primary?
So in California, we switched to a top 2 primary system, which got rid of independent and replaced it with decline to state, which technically mean 2 different things. However, it comes out to effectively meaning the same. But that it means that the top 2 candidates for each position or each ballot or each, government position, regardless of party, make it to the general election.
So, Allie, California will be electing a new senator this year because of the retirement of Barbara Boxer. How significant is millennials' vote in that race?
I think it's very significant, especially because this is such an interesting election year on the presidential side, depending on who will get elected. But a big part of that is also what kind of Congress they'll have to work with. And I think the role of a citizen in voting for Congress will be very significant in this, especially for young people to see, the policies and the representatives that they want in government.
Thank you, Max and Allie, for joining us with this conversation. Be sure to register by May 23rd to vote in the California primary election and make your ballot count.
Thanks for watching The Current. Tweet us your opinions on the presidential race with the hashtag TheCurrentSC.
Our next show will take a look at people who are making a difference in LA. If you have an idea of someone who should be featured, you can reach out to us on uscannenbergmedia.com.